If you've got a big hike planned above 8,000 feet and you don't live at altitude, you might be in for a really rough surprise. I've seen even the strongest people crash on high elevation hikes just because they're not used to the altitude and they didn't know how to prep. I'm a lifelong Colorado gal. I've summited 46 of Colorado's 14ers, peaks over 14,000 feet, and climbed in Peru and Ecuador and all over the world, and I've even been as high as 16,000 feet. I'm no mountaineering pro, but I've spent my life playing in the high alpine. After years of altitude mishaps, I've learned what actually helps you avoid that whole "why do I feel like trash" feeling. And today I'm sharing my top tips so you can actually enjoy those big views without gasping for air. And if you've got your own tips for hiking at altitude or a story about getting totally wrecked by it, drop it in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Tip 1, know your symptoms. Let me start with a story. Once upon a time, a dear friend flew out from Boston to hike Handy's Peak with me, which is a 14er down in the San Juans in southern Colorado. He is an athlete, a marathoner, and we were kind of young and dumb. So we thought he would be fine, even though he came from sea level. And I really thought he would be until we were 2 hours up the mountain and my friend started hallucinating. Honest to goodness, he was seeing pikas and marmots having boxing matches with each other. And he was giving me the play by play. When I heard that the marmot got a TKO, I knew we were in big trouble. Ultimately, two of us had to tether him between us since he was so wobbly. So one in front, one in back with a rope, and we got him down the mountain ASAP. But here is my point. Watching my friend call a boxing match between a pike and a marmot was actually hysterical, but it really wasn't funny because he was unwell, and we should have realized the severity sooner. If you're hiking at altitude and you get a pounding headache, nausea, dizziness, or you just feel totally wasted and out of it, don't ignore it. It could be AMS, acute mountain sickness, and it's not something that you just tough out. Mild symptoms, sure. Slow down, hydrate, get some rest. But if they get worse or someone's acting confused, descend immediately. You can't push through that whole lack of oxygen thing. Tip 2, iron is your altitude superpower. This one is especially important for my gals. Iron matters. Women are more likely to be slightly anemic or iron deficient, especially during perimenopause or if you have a really heavy menstrual cycle. That means less oxygen carrying hemoglobin and way more fatigue, which is not ideal when you're trying to climb into the sky. So, the day before a hike, I focus on iron rich meals, things like beef, lentils, leafy greens, or even fortified cereals. On trail, jerky, pumpkin seeds, or even trail mix with dark chocolate. Easy wins that will keep that iron flowing. Tip 3, slow down. This might be the biggest tip of all. Slow down, like way down. There's a reason that porters on Mount Kilimanjaro tell you to pole pole, which means slowly, slowly. Even if you're fit, your body is getting around 30% less oxygen at 10,000 feet and 40% less at 14,000 feet. It's like trying to exercise while breathing through a straw. I can't say that I've tried that, but it sounds kind of impossible. And fitness doesn't always make a difference. I've had ultra runner friends crash on high alpine hikes just because they went out too fast. You're not weak, you're just adjusting. So set a chill pace and take breaks. That helps your muscles and lungs catch up to the thin air. And hey, it gives you more time to take photos and soak in all those beautiful views. Tip 4, pressure breathing. Okay, this one, yes, it feels weird, but it works. It's called pressure breathing. Mountaineers have used it for years at extreme altitude, but it works at lower elevations too. Inhale deeply through your nose and then exhale forcefully through pursed lips. It pushes CO2 out and helps you absorb oxygen more efficiently, which is really what you need up there. It's a great trick if you feel dizzy or gas near the top of a climb. Take a pause, breathe deeply through your nose, and then purse and exhale. It'll help. And yeah, you'll look a little ridiculous, but so does crawling. And really, there is no pride above 12,000 feet. Tip 5, hydrate like a beast, but don't forget the electrolytes. You lose moisture faster up high. You're breathing more, you're sweating more, and you should be peeing more. So you're losing a ton of water. Hiking a 14er or any high altitude peak is not the place to grab a small handheld water bottle and call it good. It's a loose estimate, but you should aim for a liter of water per hour when you're tromping around the high country. But guess what else? Plain water isn't enough. You should actually be including electrolytes too. Electrolytes are minerals like sodium, potassium, magnesium that help your body absorb and use water. Without them, all that water you're chugging, it might not be helping you as much as you think. I always bring something like Element and add at least one packet to my bladder of water when hiking up high, especially if I'm sweating or hiking really hard. Pro tip. I see this happen a lot with women because it's not easy to pee at altitude when there aren't any trees or shrubs to hide your bare butt every time you have to squat and pee. So they tend to drink less water to avoid the problem. And I get it. One time I was hiking on Pikes Peak and I was coming up on the summit where there's a parking lot and there was a whole tour to a bus of people and there was a conga line of hikers behind me and I had to pee. So I chose the lesser of two evils and peed in front of the whole conga line of hikers on the trail. But yes, it was awkward as all get out. But still, even with that embarrassment factor, drink your water. You won't regret it. Tip 6, fuel up with the right stuff. The science tells us that altitude tends to suppress your appetite, especially in women. In fact, the research tells us that there are actually elevated levels of leptin and CCK, both hormones that promote satiety and fullness in our systems when at altitude. And there's also suppressed levels of ghrelin, which normally stimulates hunger. So, bottom line, you're probably not too hungry at 14,000 feet, but your body still needs more calories to function at elevation. So, pack all the snacks. And the best part, you want the carbs and the fat snacks, not the protein heavy snacks. Studies show that you want at least 60% of your calories to come from carbs at high altitude to maintain your energy level. Carbs are the most oxygen efficient fuel, and fat helps with long lasting energy for endurance. I know protein is all the rage right now, but it's not your best bet on the mountain. While it does help with recovery, it takes a lot of oxygen and energy to metabolize, so it's not your best choice while on trail. I learned this one the hard way when I took a bodybuilder friend up Mount Lindsay in southern Colorado down in the Sangres. He has muscle for days, but he packed his usual meat sticks and protein bars for trail snacks and nothing else. So he cramped up like crazy at 12,000 feet. His legs seized and he couldn't walk because he didn't have the proper fuel to get his muscles going again, which was not honestly what we expected as the visually fittest person in the group. My favorite snacks. I love chocolate covered anything, but especially gummy bears and espresso beans. I always have honey stinger waffles with me too, and sometimes I'll add tailwind into my water since it provides around 100 calories per scoop and is packed with carbs. That way, staying hydrated and fueled is as easy as taking a drink. Tip 7, layers are everything. At elevation, the weather is next level unpredictable. You can go from 70 degrees at the trailhead to freezing wind at the summit. And that is not an exaggeration. Above tree line, there's nothing to block the wind. You're exposed, the temps can drop fast, and if you're sweaty under all of that, you're going to get cold and fast. This is where layering becomes everything. My go-to system, I always bring a wool base layer like this one by Kari Tra, something that'll wick sweat away and keep me warm even if it's damp. If you're not familiar with how great wool is in the summer, we have a whole video about it, and I'll link to that in the description. Then I throw on a light puffy for insulation and a windproof or waterproof shell to seal it all in. 9 times out of 10, the shell doesn't come out till the summit, but I'm always happy to have it. Yes, it feels like a lot to carry, but I'm no minimalist, and I think we've gotten a bit ridiculous with the ultralight movement. It's dumb to be cold. I'd rather have a layer I don't use than be shivering in a storm, wishing I hadn't left those 6 ounces back at the car. Tip 8, protect your skin at all costs. When I was in my 20s, I was on a glacier all day while climbing Mount Rainier. High elevation, full sun, surrounded by blinding snow. And I thought I was being smart about sun protection, but apparently I wasn't smart enough. By the time I came off the mountain, my face felt hot and tight, but I chalked it up to windburn. 2 days later, second degree sunburn. My entire face peeled in sheets like some kind of reptile transformation. When I got on the plane to fly back to Colorado, a little girl actually started crying when she saw me. Yeah, not one of my finest moments. But that was when I learned how hard and how hot the sun is at altitude and how much UV radiation increases with elevation. The science says UV exposure goes up by about 10 to 12% for every 3,000 feet you gain. That means on a 14er, you're looking at 40% more UV levels than you get at sea level. And if you're on snow or rock, it reflects right back at you. So you're basically getting hit from all angles. So here's what I do now. I always wear sunscreen and use lip balm with SPF religiously because burnt lips are all sorts of miserable and can cause all sorts of blisters that hurt even more. And I never hike without a hat and or a sun hoodie to cover my neck, chest, and arms. And don't forget sunscreen on the underside of your nose and your ears. Both are areas that easily get forgotten but burn like crazy. Tip 9, ditch the whiskey. I know. Camp cocktails and whiskey feel like a part of the fun. And after a long hike in, it's tempting to celebrate with a little whiskey by the fire or crack open a beer while watching the alpenglow. Trust me, I've been there. And I was even dumb enough to cart Rainier beers to the summit of Rainier just because I thought it would be a fun thing to do. But here's the deal. Alcohol messes with your sleep quality and dehydrates you, which are two things that can make altitude sickness hit way harder. And when you're camping up high, every edge matters. Even if you're not prone to altitude issues, tossing and turning all night because your body's struggling to stay hydrated or regulate temperature is a surefire way to feel sluggish, headachy, or just plain off the next day. These days, I opt for non alcoholic beer or just save it for after the trip. Your body and your summit attempt will thank you. Altitude doesn't care how strong or how experienced you are. I like to call it the great equalizer because it humbles everyone. But if you prep right, it hopefully won't ruin your trip. I hope these tips help you feel strong and confident this summer when you're headed up high. I'll see you out there.